Welcome to today's deep dive into one of America's most notorious and controversial organizations, the Ku Klux Klan, commonly known as the KKK. In this comprehensive video, we'll explore the complete history of this white supremacist organization, from its founding in 1865 to its current diminished state in 2025. We'll examine the three distinct waves of KKK activity, their brutal tactics, infiltration into government, and the legal battles that have brought them to near extinction. This is not a glorification, but an educational examination of a dark chapter in American history that continues to cast shadows even today. Understanding this history is crucial for recognizing how hate groups operate and ensuring such extremism never gains power again. Chapter 1. The Birth of Terror. On December 24, 1865, 6 Confederate veterans gathered in Pulaski, Tennessee, and established what would become the first chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. The name supposedly derived from the Greek word kaiklos, meaning circle, with Klan added for alliteration. What began as a so-called social club quickly transformed into something far more sinister. The timing was no coincidence. The Civil War had just ended and the Reconstruction era was beginning. The federal government was implementing policies to integrate newly freed African Americans into society, granting them citizenship and voting rights. For many white supremacists, this represented an unacceptable threat to the racial hierarchy they desperately wanted to maintain. Nathan Bedford Forrest, the first Grand Wizard. In 1867, the Klan found its first national leader in Nathan Bedford Forrest, a former Confederate Lieutenant General. Forrest, already known as the Wizard of the Saddle for his cavalry tactics during the war, became the organization's first and only Grand Wizard. Under his leadership, the KKK grew from scattered local groups into what they called the Invisible Empire of the South. Forrest's involvement gave the Klan structure and credibility among Confederate veterans. However, by 1869, even Forrest became disillusioned with the group's lack of discipline and increasing violence, ordering its dissolution. His order was largely ignored and local chapters continued operating independently until federal intervention in the early 1870s. Reign of Terror during Reconstruction. The first KKK's primary goal was clear: undermine Republican Reconstruction policies and prevent African Americans from exercising their newly granted rights. Their methods were brutal and systematic. Between 1866 and 1867 alone, W.E.B. Du Bois estimated the KKK was responsible for 197 murders and 548 aggravated assaults in North and South Carolina. Klansmen dressed in white robes and hoods to hide their identities and frighten their victims, continued nighttime raids on African American homes and communities. They whipped, tortured, and murdered Black Americans and their white allies. Churches and schools established by the Freedmen's Bureau were frequent targets. The violence was so systematic that historian William Gillett labeled it guerrilla warfare. Chapter 2. Federal Response and Temporary Defeat. The federal government eventually responded to the Klan's reign of terror. In 1871, Congress passed the Force Bill, which allowed for persecution of Klan members in federal court. This legislation, combined with aggressive federal enforcement under President Ulysses S. Grant, dramatically reduced Klan activity. By the early 1870s, the original KKK had all but disappeared. However, the damage was done. The Klan's terrorist campaign had successfully disrupted black political participation and helped end Reconstruction prematurely. As federal troops withdrew from the South, a new system of racial oppression emerged: the Jim Crow era of legalized segregation and disenfranchisement. Chapter 3: The Second Rise, Birth of a Nation. The KKK remained dormant for nearly 4 decades until a single film changed everything. In 1915, D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation premiered to massive audiences across America. Based on Thomas Dixon's novel The Klansman, the film portrayed the Reconstruction era KKK as heroic defenders of white civilization against supposedly savage and corrupt African Americans. The film's impact was immediate and devastating. It normalized racial ideologies and directly inspired the KKK's revival. In December 1915, Colonel William J. Simmons led a cross burning on Stone Mountain, Georgia, marking the beginning of the Second Klan. The film's imagery, hooded Klansmen on horseback with burning crosses, became synonymous with the organization. The Second Klan Speak. The second KKK was vastly different from its predecessor. Officially reorganized as a fraternal organization in 1915, it operated with full-time recruiters and national headquarters. By 1924-25, it claimed between 4 to 6 million members, roughly 15% of the nation's eligible male population. This incarnation expanded its hatred beyond African Americans to include immigrants, Catholics, Jews, and anyone deemed un-American. The Klan of the 1920s reflected mainstream anxieties about immigration and changing demographies. It operated openly in many communities, with membership becoming a qualification for public office in southern states. Mainstream infiltration. Perhaps most disturbing was how thoroughly the second KKK infiltrated American institutions. Many influential national figures were members, including future US Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black and Senator Robert Byrd. The Klan didn't operate in shadows. It held parades, published newspapers, and ran candidates for office. In some states, Klan endorsement was essential for electoral success. The organization's influence extended to law enforcement, judiciary, local government. The institutional support allowed the Klan to operate with impunity while terrorizing minority communities. The pattern of state-sanctioned or state-ignored racial violence would persist for decades. Chapter 4: Decline and Third Wave. Economic collapse. The second KKK's decline began in the late 1920s due to financial scandals, leadership disputes, and changing social attitudes. The Great Depression further weakened the organization. In 1944, the Internal Revenue Service filed a case for around $685,000 in back taxes, forcing the national organization to dissolve. By 1930, membership had plumbed to just 30,000. Civil rights era resurgence. The third KKK emerged in 1950s and 1960s as a direct response to the growing civil rights movement. Unlike previous iterations, this version was highly fragmented, consisting of numerous independent local groups using the KKK name. They were united in their violent opposition to desegregation and civil rights progress. This period saw one of the KKK's most heinous crimes, including the 1963 bombing of the 60th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. For young girls, Addie Mae Collins, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Weasley, and Carol Denise McNair were killed when KKK members planted 19 sticks of dynamite under the church. The bombing shocked the nation and became a turning point in civil rights movement, building support for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Chapter 5. Modern Controversies and Criminal Activities. The Birmingham Church Bombing. The 16th Street Baptist Church bombing represents the KKK's most notorious act of terrorism. On September 15, 1963, four KKK members, Thomas Edwin Blanton Jr., Herman Frank Cash, Robert Edward Chambliss, and Bobby Frank Cherry, planted the bomb that killed 4 innocent children and injured 22 others. What made this crime even more appalling was the decades of impunity that followed. Robert Chambliss wasn't convicted until 1977, while Blanton and Cherry weren't prosecuted until 2021 and 22 respectively. Herman Cash died in 1994 without ever being charged. The delay in justice reflected the deep institutional racism that protected Klan members for generations. Government infiltration scandals. The KKK's infiltration of government institutions continued well into the modern era. Robert Bard, who served in Congress from 1953 until his death in 2010, was a former Klan recruiter who held the titles of Kleagle or Exalted Cyclops. Even as late as 1946, Bard wrote to the Imperial Wizard, "The Klan is needed today as never before, and I am anxious to see its rebirth here in West Virginia." Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black was also a former Klan member, though he later dismissed the organization and voted in favor of desegregation in Brown versus Board of Education. These cases highlight how the Klan's tentacles reached into the highest levels of American government. Symbols and rituals of terror. The KKK developed an elaborate system of symbols and rituals designed to intimidate and unify members. The white robes and hoods, originally intended to hide identities and frighten victims, became iconic symbols of American racism. The organization used titles like Imperial Wizard, Grand Dragon, and Exalted Cyclops. Cross burning, adopted from 14th century Scottish traditions, became the Klan's most recognizable ritual after the 1915 film popularized it. These burning crosses served dual purposes: creating group solidarity among members and terrorizing targeted communities. The practice became so associated with the racial violence that many states eventually banned it. Chapter 6. Legal Battles and Financial Destruction. The Southern Poverty Law Center's War. The most effective weapon against the modern KKK has been civil litigation. Beginning in 1981, the Southern Poverty Law Center (SPLC) developed an innovative legal strategy, bankrupting hate groups through massive civil judgments. The breakthrough case came after the 1981 lynching of Michael Donald, a 19-year-old black man in Mobile, Alabama. SPLC attorneys Morris Dees and Michael Figures sued the United Klans of America, winning $7 million judgment for Donald's mother. This verdict forced the entire organization into bankruptcy, with their national headquarters sold for $52,000 to help satisfy the judgment. A pattern of legal victories. The SPLC's success against the United Klans of America established a precedent that has been used repeatedly. Subsequent victories include $37.8 million verdict against Christian Knights of the KKK for burning Macedonia Baptist Church, $2.5 million judgment against the Imperial Klans of America for a racially motivated assault, multiple successful cases that have bankrupted local Klan chapters. These legal victories achieved what criminal prosecutions often couldn't, completely destroying the Klan's financial ability to operate. As SPLC researcher Heidi Byrick explained, by taking their money away, they can't function anymore. Chapter 7. Decline and Modern Status. Dramatic membership collapse. The KKK decline has been precipitous. From a peak of potentially 6 million members in the 1920s, Current estimates place total membership at just 3,000 to 500 people nationwide. The Southern Poverty Law Center reported that the number of clan groups dropped from 130 in 2016 to just 51 in 2019. Several factors explain this collapse. Number one, legal bankruptcies that destroyed major organizations. Number two, toxic brand recognition that makes membership a career-ending liability. Number three, inability to attract younger members who prefer more modern extremist groups. Number four, effective law enforcement infiltration and monitoring. Number five, social media deplatforming that limits recruitment. Evolution of white supremacy. While the KKK has declined, its ideology has evolved and adapted. Modern white supremacist groups like the Proud Boys, neo-Nazi organizations, and active clubs have adopted KKK principles while rejecting its antiquated imagery. These groups prefer Fred Perry polo shirts and khakis to Klan robes. In 2004, SPLC report noted that newer groups like the Maryland White Knights and Sacred White Knights have emerged from the remnants of defunct chapters. These organizations attempt to maintain KKK traditions while adapting to modern recruitment methods, particularly through social media platforms. Chapter 8. Legacy and Ongoing Impact. The Price of Terror. The KKK's historical impact cannot be measured solely in membership numbers or organizational strength. Conservative estimates suggest the various iterations of the Klan were responsible for thousands of murders, lynchings, and acts of terrorism. The Equal Justice Initiative documented at least 2,000 racial terror lynchings during Reconstruction alone, with the actual number likely much higher. Beyond direct violence, the KKK's terrorism enabled and enforced a system of racial oppression that lasted for generations. Their campaigns of intimidation successfully prevented African Americans from exercising voting rights, attending schools, and participating fully in American democracy for nearly a century after the Civil War. Modern echoes. While the KKK itself may be terminal decline, public historian Sam Bock notes that the Klan's white supremacist, anti-Semitic, Christian nationalistic ideals are thriving in America today. The organization's core beliefs have been absorbed into broader white nationalist movements that remain active and dangerous. The rise of online platforms has allowed these ideologies to spread without requiring formal organizational membership. Social media enables extremists to connect and radicalize without the structure and visibility that made traditional hate groups vulnerable to legal attack. Conclusion. The history of the Ku Klux Klan is ultimately a story of American terrorism. How a relatively small group of extremists used violence and intimidation to maintain racial oppression for over a century. From its founding by Confederate veterans in 1865 to its current fractured state, the KKK has represented the absolute worst of American society. Yet this history also demonstrates the power of sustained legal and social resistance. The combination of federal enforcement, civil rights activism, and innovative legal strategies has reduced the KKK from a powerful national organization to a collection of marginal extremist groups. The success of the Southern Poverty Law Center's bankruptcy strategy shows that hate groups are vulnerable when their financial resources are targeted. However, vigilance remains essential. While the KKK itself may be dying, the ideologies it championed continue to find new expressions. Understanding this history helps us recognize the warning signs of extremist movements and the importance of protecting democratic institutions and civil rights. The fight against hate is never truly finished, but the KKK's decline proves that even the most entrenched system of operation can be defeated through sustained effort, legal innovation, and moral courage. That may be the most important lesson from this dark chapter of American history.